Dear An Lee and Kai Lin, it's been 2 years since Tutu Kane's death, and I feel sad that because of his Alzheimer's, you two never really got to know him. I guess even though your Tutu Kane was one of the kindest men and loved his family very dearly, I sometimes felt like I didn't know him that well. For Japanese Americans like us, we don't necessarily communicate in the most direct ways. When I was your age, I was often frustrated by this indirection. I always used to focus on the fact that the only time I saw Tutu Kane cry was when he told me that our dog Baggins was dying. For some reason, that memory sticks out so clearly. I remember we were in the kitchen and my dad was facing away from me. Baggins was on the porch and his nails were clicking against the hard wood. I remember my dad telling me that Baggins didn't have long to live and he couldn't look at me when he told me this, and that's how I knew he was crying, by the sound of his voice and the pauses. That is not unusual for Japanese American males, and I sometimes worry that this inability to be open with our feelings prevents us from getting close to people, even the ones we love the most, like our own children. And then another part of me thinks that this expectation to be so open is very American. It comes from watching too many movies where the child and parent break down and cry in each other's arms. That if we can't do this, we're not good parents. That worries me a lot. But I also want to reflect to you that there are other ways to express your love to children. I remember when I was in middle school and my dad decided to volunteer at my Boy Scouts troop. And we had this huge trip to Montreal for 2 weeks of canoeing on the beautiful lakes in the Quebec provinces. I can't remember a lot of details about this trip, but I do remember the feeling of pride and comfort that it took that my dad would spend that time with me. That 2 long weeks in the wilderness. It's so rare to have that time to bond and connect. In our daily lives, we have work, school, commutes, computer time. But long, uninterrupted time to be together, surrounded by nature's beauty, is rare. And I remember how great it felt. I even gave my dad this Homer Winslow's print of a father and son canoeing. I remember he hung it up on his wall in his office. I don't think he ever said it out loud, but it was special to him too. So what I'm trying to say is that each parent shows his or her love to their children in their own way. They do their best, just as each child makes their best effort. And sometimes it goes wrong. The parent makes an awkward wrong gesture, or the child is too self-involved, or vice versa, but we do our best. The bottom line is your father does love you both, and wants to make sure that you know that. Just like Tutu Kane did, even though with his Alzheimer's he couldn't really express it. Before Tutu Kane was completely bedridden, I remember helping him walking into the house. He wasn't speaking much at the time, but he grabbed my shoulder and looked me in the eye and said, "You're good people. You're very good people." I realized, even with the ravages of this disease, Tutu Kane, deep in his heart, was telling us that he loved us in his own way.